Good evening, Wealth Our Way Nation. What is going on? It is your main man, Charles Tank Harris, the founder and chief visionary officer of the financial literacy platform, Wealth Our Way, where our motto is wealth is not only for the wealthy. I want to welcome each and every one of you to the Financial Power Hour. It's going to be crazy as we wrap up the home buyers workshop here that we've hosted all month of February. I have each guest back from the previous weeks. It's going to be bananas. And I'm going to introduce and bring everybody back to the forefront. But before we do, I got to practice the attitude of gratitude and thank each and every one of you who are here with us as we stream live across the Wealth Our Way Facebook page and the Wealth Our Way Network YouTube page. I also want to give the WOW Nation salute to all the members of Wealth Our Way Nation who watch this program overnight, over the weekend, wherever they can squeeze the time to get some financial literacy for their mind. And then last but not least, a heartfelt how are you to the good folks on my homie and client Brandon Copeland's Life 101 platform, because they listen to the audio recording of this very here program. And shameless plug, next month when we bring the entertainers and athletes onto the show, my boy Brandon Copeland, Atlanta Falcons, University of Pennsylvania educated doctor, financial professor, not doctor yet, financial professor in mind, young cat, really doing it big on and off the field, will be here. So definitely shout out to everybody on his platform at Life 101. With that being said, thank you, good people. I got to say, I've been blessed this month, as in previous shows, to have Mike Headley from the Hedley Real Estate Group, Dayanna Reeves, as well as Liz Parris. Liz Parris is now with Movement Mortgage. We know her from her previous life at a firm that no longer gets mentioned, and now she's at Movement Mortgage. And Dayanna is making moves all over the place. So she is not only a licensed realtor, and she taught us last time she was here the difference between a realtor and just a regular old agent, but she is doing big things with her own company, her own investment forums. I see her providing great financial literacy all across social media. So I'm just blessed. Thank you guys all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I wanted to do, and I know you guys are just a motley crew of cats to get it done, is I want to have a family style discussion between the four of us and take, as questions come from the audience, take these questions, answer them. We are calling tonight the Blueprint. We are calling tonight the 2022 Home Buyers Blueprint. Why is this the blueprint? Not just because it's clever and cool to say on marketing and on thumbnails, but because I have someone. Now, first of all, I don't want to pigeonhole or limit anybody in one of these little boxes that you see, because they are all beasts in their chosen profession. And because they are wealth creators, they're beasts outside of their chosen specialty. But we're going to talk about what they're each on here as a specialist for tonight, whereas Liz is on the lending side of all things real estate. Does that not mean that she has worked with so many realtors that she could talk to you about the purchasing process and the valuations? Of course she could, but she's here to talk about the financing of these different deals that we will look to get done. My brother Mike Headley, once again, very well-versed, owns his own company, has many agents working under him. But we were talking before we got on air that he specializes in the procurement. He specializes in helping his people who are listing their properties. He's a seller's agent by preference, but of course you can't be on one side of the deal without knowing the other side very, very well. And Dayanna, when I had a client that's looking for a property in Philly, this is who I call, because I know she's going to put them in what they need, whether it's a purchase, whether it's a lease, whether it's a build, whether it's a owner-occupied business. Doesn't matter. She has expertise in all of these areas. So we're blessed to have each and every one of you. Why don't you guys go around and tell a little bit about yourself? We are, yes, in a progressive day and age, but I'm going to remain sexist and let the ladies go first. And then I'm going to go alphabetical and let Dayanna go first, then Liz, then Mike.
Perfect. Thank you again, Tank. So my name is Dayanna Reeves. I am an entrepreneur, an investor, and a licensed realtor in Pennsylvania. On the real estate side, I do specialize in helping first-time home buyers because I am an advocate for wealth building, and I just love to see the smiles on clients' faces when they purchase that first home. I also own a financial firm titled Millennials Making Sense, and this is a financial coaching firm where I do digital coaching as well as one-on-one one-on-one coaching to provide clients and community members with information on investing in their retirement accounts, their individual stock accounts, as well as real estate investing.
Love it. Go ahead, Miss Liz.
I love it. I love it. Again, I'm Elizabeth Parris. I know Dayanna too, because I see her in the social world. Yes. Hey, girl. But my name is Elizabeth Parris. I'm a mortgage loan originator, loan officer, whatever you like to call me. I work for Movement Mortgage. I specialize in all buyers, first time, repeat, reverse refinancing, new construction, investment. And if I can't do it, I know somebody who can that I trust. So that's the type of lender I am. I'm big on education and also motivating, because it's a mental game before it's anything else. I have a podcast called Medicine to Mortgages, where I talk about how I went from medicine to mortgages. Peep the name. Again, finance is a mental game, especially when building generational wealth. You can find me on Instagram, Medicine to Mortgages.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you, Charles Tank Harris, for giving me that second option, being on second time coming on the show. Mike Headley, broker owner of the Hedley Group Realty, entrepreneur, investor, as well as the host you see in the background, Hedley Group Real Estate Show, where we highlight professionals of color to just give them their flowers while they're here, so to speak. You got to have 1 million followers. If you got 20, 30 followers, this way we can get you on the show. This way you can connect with, other people. I specialize, I would say, more or less in listings. Again, I work with buyers, but I prefer listings, as though they're far and few in between in this market. But again, we got certain formulas that kind of give us that edge, and I'll be happy to share them on the show today.
We appreciate it, man. And once again, I think each and every one of you guys will have a love fest throughout the whole hour here tonight of me just continuously thanking you guys. Because first and foremost, as Liz pointed out about seeing Dayanna on social media, and Mike found me on social media, that's where we are this day. And for some people it's second nature, and not to pick on or shine a too bright a light on Dayanna as being the youngest person here. It's more second nature for her, I'm sure, to do things social media. For me, y'all see this, it's been an exercise. It's a learning thing for me to go from a brick and mortar financial professional to a social media financial professional. I still haven't mastered it. I'll be completely honest with you. And I don't know if you ever do. Technologies change. The next place to be changes, and you have to keep up with it. The goal, though, and I think what makes it palatable for me and doesn't stress me out, is that I'm here to help people. And when you're trying to help people, you get help. So, Brother Mike brought me on his show for the reasons he said. Hey, I saw this guy out here. He's telling people the right things. He may not be so big that he has so many followers that he may give me the Heisman about coming on my show. I'm anybody, and I'm going to date myself. It's an old Eddie Murphy movie, Distinguished Gentleman. Not one of his best, but I found it funny. And he's running for political office, and he's out there a lot, talking to these different lobbyists, and he meets the poultry lobby. And he says, look, I don't know a lot about chicken, but if you people want to come to me and talk about chicken, I'm going to listen. And the reality is that if you want to talk about finances, give me the day and the time, and I'm coming. And I don't care if there's one person there or 3,000 people there, because this is what I truly love to do. As I shared with the guest today, my son, who is the apple of my eye, everybody knows that, has a basketball game right now, and I'm here educating the people because this is what I do, and he knows that. So we're going to start by kind of recapping what we've talked about so far this month. So far this month, having each of you guys on, we talked about, last week, we talked about why the apps that people normally go to now, the Zillows, the Trulias, the Realtor.coms, why they are not the best source of information. Starting point, perhaps, but definitely not what you want to see guiding you through. So I want to take this opportunity to have each of you guys, because last week Dayanna got a chance to attack it, each of you guys kind of talk about how you feel about how social media, how the internet, namely these real estate apps, how it is affecting the real estate process for prospective buyers. And I guess to keep it in order and keep it moving, my job as a moderator, I'm going to go with Liz and then Mike and then Dayanna.
Okay.
So I tend to let realtors tell their clients what apps they want them to search to use when searching for homes. I feel like that's your hat. I'm gonna let you wear your hat. For me as a lender, where the problem comes into play is when folk want to monitor their credit, because that is the biggest miscommunication, misinformation folk have about being ready for the process. Your Credit Karmas. I know everyone says it, but it always happens. A client's like, oh yeah, check my credit on Credit Karma. Credit Karma is the least reliable source of credit information. It is great to see what's on your credit, meaning if there's a collections or something derogatory, but it is terrible at telling what your score is because it can be off 30 to 40 points in either direction, and it is often in the lower direction that it is distant from. I'm a huge fan of saying, hey, you need to go to Experian. Yes, you're going to pay monthly for it. It's $32, I believe, or $35 or $39. It's under $40, but it's worth the $40 you pay a month to have an accurate update to your credit. There was one more, it'll come to me, but always check your credit card FICOs. Those are also fairly accurate as well. They may be off by a week, but no Credit Karma, nothing else that actually doesn't do a solid pull on your credit or a solid soft pull on your credit. Credit card apps and Experian. If you have to pay for it, 9 times out of 10, it's a solid representation of your credit report and your credit score. That's
Before I let Mike jump on the apps, whether it's the real estate or the credit apps, you bring a valid question to mind for me. I am not a credit expert. I don't play one on TV either. What I do know, though, is that the three credit bureaus do report differently, which is why they go with a middle score. They'll average, they'll look at the three and take the median score.
Correct.
I do know that Experian, because I use them as an app to track my credit. They have this Experian Boost. Now, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that if Experian Boost is by brand name for Experian, that's the only one it's going to show up on. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong. Let me tell you how that does help, though. As a lender who sees a boost on credit reports all the time, we're not counting that boost because you just takes whatever the payment is and counts it on debt. We don't count the boost, but I can see where it ranks with your scores. So when I do a hard pull on your credit score, sometimes that boost is what's giving you the middle score you need to either get grant money or qualify for the mortgage that you want. So even though it only shows up on Experian, it actually a lot of times helps. Sometimes it's the top, sometimes it's the middle score. And if it's a strong score, those boosts have helped you. So no, it's not on all three bureaus, but it still helps you to do it.
I appreciate that answer. Mike, talk to me about these apps, man. What you seeing out here in the world?
Well, what I would say is distortion and mismarketing. In other words, exactly what I mean by that is that if you see you want to get a home valuation, the first thing people do is go to Zillow, right? And Zillow whole objective is to get you on their website so they can get these marketing companies so they can sell advertisement. So if they can tell you your house is worth this and it's really not worth that, then you're more apt to kind of get on their sites. I would say you offset that by connecting with a licensed professional, an experienced realtor, so they can give you the accurate valuation on your property. And it's based off pulling recent comp sales, right? Similar homes that sold had the same similarities like your property. Not a big fan of the TrueLens Zillow because, again, like I said, they try to lure you in by just by mismanaging the marketing. So I would just hone in on by definitely connecting with a realtor.
Appreciate you. And Dayanna, I've seen you over there shaking your head aggressively. I know you got something to say.
You know what I mean?
Yes, for sure. So I have two things to say about this particular question. So the first reason why I don't really care for the apps like Zillow, Realtor.com, Trulia, clients are searching for homes prematurely, meaning they're probably not even pre-approved for a house and they're already looking at all these houses because they feel like, oh, this house looks bomb, I can afford that, or this house looks like exactly what I want. But we have to back up a second and consult with a professional, whether you get your pre-approval first from your lender or you talk to your realtor who has lender partners and get you a pre-approval. Therefore, you then know what types of houses you should be searching for online, period. And then the second part that I want to mention is your realtor has access to the MLS, which is what we use in real estate. So we have access to all of the homes that you see on these apps. So by working with the realtor, we're going to set up your custom search for you. So therefore, you don't need to be hopping from app to app trying to figure out what's out there, because once you're set up with the realtor, you're going to get the houses already. So there's no need to bother with the apps because you have a personal connection and a personal resource from your real estate agent.
That's a great statement that you just made. Once again, being down here in Georgia and starting to look around, my barber, you know how we do it. You know, we stay close to familiarity. My barber's wife is a realtor, so she's been helping me out with the home search, because if I can go get a fresh one and find a property, it's what I need. So I noticed that when I was trolling the Trulias and the Zillows and the Realtor.com with my specific criteria, trying to stay in this school district, everything that I saw on there that I liked was also on her MLS listing, and a gang of cribs that I didn't see on these other spots. I'm like, oh, wait, I'm wasting my time on Realtor.com at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep. All I got to do is say, hey, Janine, you know, these houses were dope, but send me some more. And I got more. Something Mike said triggered my next question. And I think this can definitely, for the realtor professionals, be a layup, but even Liz, I know, has had to have this drive her crazy. So one of my really good friends, and I know Dayanna, virtually through this person, is my girl Nikki Purvey. Shout out to Better Than Success Real Estate League. And Nikki put a post up the other day. She did a lot of great social media about when your wholesaler sends you comps that you know have nothing to do with the property that they're talking about. And so I want to talk to our audience about comps. I want to talk, because you mentioned comps, Mike. You know, people are running around thinking, hey, I should buy this house. And the first thing you know, it's all tied together. If you're going to have a lender lend you money, they're going to have a appraised value for this house that they feel as though it's worth. And as they say in the dating game, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's never more true than in the lending game. If the lender doesn't think it's worth it, it ain't worth it. So, you know, the lender has to go from what the appraiser says, though, right? Like if the lender says, I'm not following, you know, I don't, even if the appraiser comes back and says it's worth 500,000, the lender can be like, I don't feel that way.
Well, so no,
they can't do that.
We cannot. That's not legal. And I want to make sure that we had a whole 2008 situation that had everybody jacked up. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was like, oh, wait, pause. And I want to clarify this because this happens a lot with the tug and pull with lenders and clients. We don't choose the appraisal company. It is literally an appraisal management company. They source out to different appraisal companies that are smaller to find whoever's available. The appraiser goes out and assesses based on their knowledge of the area and the comps in the area, and then they do what they're supposed to do. Now, they sometimes may come back with the proper value based on what's been happening in the marketplace, and sometimes they come back with something I call wayward, and that's because they may not know the market as well. So it's really on sellers or whoever's listening to property to make sure they have the most up-to-date comps to present to the appraiser. But the lender, we legally are not allowed to dictate the value or what the appraiser says. We only go by the guidelines dictated by the financing option. I just have to clarify that because
I want to clarify what I said, because maybe I was either misinterpreted or misspoke. What I'm saying is I'm Bank of America. I'm the lender. I don't give a damn what an appraisal company tells me a property is worth. If I don't agree, I'm not making that loan. You're telling me that a lender has to lend because an appraiser said that it's worth a certain amount of money?
We lend on the value given by the appraiser. The only time we contest that is if we are presented with information, and there's a proper procedure to do so with proper comps for value if there's a concern. But we can't, as long as a property holds appropriate according to the appraiser's report, they have to do it according to guidelines. They have their set guidelines for financing options. We as a lender can't say, oh, it's worth $1 million, but we're only want to lend it for 900. No, we cannot contest, argue, or dictate what an appraiser does. There's a certain process for sellers or to present comps, or I'm sorry, listing agents to present comps to say, hey, the market reflects this, and the appraiser is off, which means that appraiser is not up to date on the market. But there's a whole system in place to assure that. Otherwise, we're not allowed to say we can't. If something is under appraised, we're going to go by what the appraisal says. So we're not going to say it's listed or the contract is 500,000, but it appraised for 400,000. You still have to honor 5. No, we're only going to lend based on the value of the property. So I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. So we can't, we don't say no, or we're not going to do something unless it doesn't hold value.
Understood. Mike, what were you going to add to that?
No, actually she answered it by, she had to get everybody straight, Elizabeth. I was going to ask her because I was fortunate twice to challenge an appraisal, right? People think appraisals is God, so to speak. I said, now he couldn't have pulled some solid comps, but I had to go through a process, and it was with Wells Fargo, and I had to go through a process, and they gave me some pushback, but like you said, the comps supported my claim, and as a result, they had to up the price. And I was going to ask Elizabeth, how did she, like, what is the process on with movement when appraisal is challenged?
So thankfully I haven't had to challenge any appraisals as of my time at Movement Mortgage. I can't speak for any other lenders I have worked for previously, but I will say it's really just the same process. I'm going to go back to, if it comes back a little bit low, and this is where me working with realtors and knowing the market that I am lending in helps me be able to point out before anyone gets it back to me, like, hey, this looks off. So I'm able to then go to the listing agent and the buyer's agent and say, hey, this isn't coming in at value. Do you have the comps that you use to list it? Typically I let the buyer's agent do it, but sometimes I'm a little more hands-on, so I make sure to just respect everyone's needs. But once we have those comps presented, there's a whole entire appraisal review department that I send it to, and they handle it from there. That's it. I present the facts, I let them assess the facts, and they come back and say we agree or disagree. That's how that works.
Before we move to a couple of questions from the audience, I want to give Dayanna an opportunity to weigh in on that topic.
Yes, for sure. So great responses from everyone. I just definitely want to add, I'm providing comps to both my buyers and my sellers, so we all are on the same page. If I'm listing a property for a seller, I'm going to give him a range. I'm going to provide the comps, and I'll give them a range based on, it may be a $10,000 to $15,000 range. Right? Because we never know what the market's going to do. We never know if there are other properties that may sell higher or lower throughout our process when we're listing. So I'm providing the comps up front, and I'm saying, hey, I believe this house is worth between $280,000 to $290,000. I allow my seller to then say, okay, I want to list it at X. Of course, they want to list it at the top of the market at $290,000. But I give them that wiggle room to let them know that, hey, we may or may not get $290,000. If we do, it's great. If not, we have to go by the market. And then on the buyer side, when I'm working with buyers, if they want to put an offer in on a property, I also present the comps to them to let them know what the property is actually worth, right? What the property is worth. And therefore, they kind of know what they're getting themselves into, because the listing price is not always the value price. So I like to provide those facts up front, whether I'm working with the seller, especially because we have to list it fairly, but my buyers as well, because especially with first-time buyers, I just want them to kind of know what they're walking into value-wise. So, and then lastly, I do challenge appraisals quite often, just because I know the markets. And again, I'm pulling those comps up front. So as soon as the appraisal comes back low, my antennas are already going off. I already kind of know what I need. But then another fact is, if you go and meet the appraiser and give them a report, they're likely going to follow the comps that you present to them, because most appraisers don't like to do extra work. So as long as the comps are fair and you're not like giving them bogus numbers, they are most likely going to come back with a similar value as what you presented to them. So I also try to meet the appraisers at the property.
That's a great answer. And we'll get on something adding on to what you said about the professionals that we'll deal with after we take a couple of questions. WOW Nation member Sister Lindsay Bronner has a question regarding FICO. And is FICO the most common utilized score in this process?
So there are several different scales and scores that are considered FICO. And FICO is really your average of all of your credit scores. And again, those scores are based off scales. There are many scales. So whenever you're thinking about FICO, just think average of your credit scores, and you're going to have 3 that you're going to look for. So I can't tell you which one or which scale that lenders use. If I could, I'd have a Nobel Peace Prize, and I'd be doing something completely different with my life, I promise you. But just understand that they're going to take your three FICOs, average. It could be FICO 8, FICO 2, FICO 5, FICO 3. I have not a clue, but I can tell you that you need to just be monitoring what's happening with your credit and what's derogatory and what's a positive history.
Either you guys, Dayanna or Mike, want to add to that?
I think that's a great answer. From my experience, like Liz said, there are different types of FICO scores, but we're definitely looking at the FICO over like a Vantage score. So that's why earlier in the show, Liz said, don't rely on Credit Karma to, look at your FICO score, because Credit Karma is providing what they call a Vantage score, which is a total different algorithm than the FICO score. So you want to stick with that Experian, the Experian report, and you should be able to get your most accurate scores from Experian.com.
Perfect. Mike, you want to bring up anything on that? Perfect.
I got a third motion. Both of them ladies, they hit it. They hit it out.
Love.
I got nothing to add. I agree with you that.
We're going to double back. I just wanted to go back to Lindsay's question, because she asked it before we had kind of got into the conversation about appraisals and comps. But we have Sister Tashawana asking, what are comps?
Yeah, so I can weigh in on that one first, and I'll let the other audience members join me. So I think of comps as you're comparing apples to apples, right? So if you want to purchase a house and you're purchasing a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, a row home, which means it's connected to other houses on the block. In order to figure out what your house is worth, you need to look at least 3 other houses that are very similar, comparing apples to apples. 3-bedroom, 1-bathrooms, row homes within a certain distance of each other. We usually go a half a mile out, so about 5 blocks within the radius of that area. And you want to be looking at design in the house, because if you have a newly renovated new construction home that sold for $300,000 and it fits the 3-bedroom, 1-bath row house, criteria, if your home is not a newly renovated new construction home, you're now comparing watermelons to apples. So we have to continue to compare apples to apples. So you're looking for similar properties that sold within the last 6 months, preferably within a half a mile radius, that are pretty much similar in like kind.
And if I just had to add on, I mean, she hit it out the park again. Typically, like she said, a half a mile within metropolitan city areas, but if you had to go more southern, more suburban, that 2 miles out, if you had to go rural, 5 miles out to find comps. And any kind of way, if you're a realtor or you're a professional didn't find an exact comp similar to your property, then they'll find, like, say, for example, if your house had a 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, and the only thing we could find is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 1-car garage, then we'll make an adjustment up for that actual comp. So this way it can try to be roughly a range of how they can get a solid value.
Dayanna brought up something that I find very interesting, and no, there's no such thing as a dumb question, sis. So don't be upset that you now know comps are comparisons. I think the deeper dive that each guest just took on it is very helpful for everybody who's listening now or who will listen to this pre-recorded later. So that's a great question. And let me just chime in, and any of the guests can add to it. TransUnion and Equifax, nobody is here waving the Experian flag saying it's the only major credit bureau. They just happen to have a pretty useful app. They advertise it really, really well, and it's very popular to use, but there's no preference over TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian. They are the 3 big credit reporting bureaus, and they pretty much, I won't say exactly, but they're pretty much identical in how they scale and how they report. You may find certain lenders who are married to a certain reporting agency. So, like, what are you saying, Liz?
Not me.
Not Liz. But and this isn't even, when I say lender, let me be clear. I should say credit provider, because I'm not even speaking in the mortgage realm. I know for a fact, Chase Bank goes to TransUnion. They rock with TransUnion. There are other credit card companies that only pull what Equifax says. So you will find that there are different creditors that have an allegiance to a certain credit union for whatever their rationale is. It's like McDonald's only serves Coke products or whatever. So they're all great. Those are the big 3, though: Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. You guys want to add any of that?
I was going to say the reason why you may find that you get financing for certain things versus others is because of those loyalties. or those preferences. Let me not say loyalty before I get in trouble with somebody, but those preferences for certain lenders, for certain credit or FICO or credit bureaus is why a car dealership might give you a loan for a Beamer versus Discover upping your credit limit to $50,000. But then you come back and say, well, I can't get a house. I know, because we're looking at all three scores and we're looking at the middle of those three scores. And that doesn't work for us in regards to feeling secure in lending you a six-figure mortgage. So that's just in case anyone has a question as to why can I get some lending versus others.
Excellent question. I want to go back to comps for a minute, because if you're in the market to buy a house, and I feel more for buyers, because when you're buying, as I've done it a couple of times, I always felt great when I was selling the property, because even if it didn't work out exactly as I wanted, I'm getting some bread. Like, I find that as a financial planner / investment advisor, people are never mad when they don't. Well, let me take that back. People aren't as mad when they don't get as much money as they're expecting to get versus how angry they get when they lose money. So if I tell you, hey, we're going to sell this for $500,000 and we sell it for $480,000, they still taking me to dinner. If I tell them you're going to make some money and you lose 50 cents, now everybody's pissed off. With that being the case, comps are very important. There's always been a statement that you don't want to own the nicest house on the block, so to speak. You would rather have the worst house in the nicest neighborhood, because the comps are going to pull the value of your house up. Dayanna referenced new construction. So I'm Philly native, even though I'm not there now. And I watched this wave of houses that people didn't want to walk by because they were eyesores. All of a sudden, shells and houses going for $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in South Philly off Washington Avenue. And I just want to know who takes that first plunge or that first paradigm shift of saying, these houses were worth $40,000 last month, but we believe, because Graduate Hospital is around the corner and people are coming back to the city, that this house is going to be worth $400,000, and that's what we're now making comps based on. How does that work?
Yes, so I guess I can tap into that. So, from my understanding, of course, it starts with investors. So, if you're going to, and they call it setting the comps. So if we're in South Philadelphia and there are a bunch of eyesores on the block, but you have one that someone takes a chance on and they buy it, right? They buy it and they renovate it to the level that may be similar to a zip code over, all new construction, all exposed brick, all, beautiful appliances, beautiful granite or quartz countertops. So now they're bringing this new value into a new neighborhood. But most of the times the appraisers are going to say, hey, there's nothing in this neighborhood that looks like this. So let's go a zip code over and let's base the comps based off of that. So then they present that value. And now here we are setting the comps in a new neighborhood, and every other investor just continues to follow suit. Okay. So that's typically how it's happening.
Yeah.
And Mike, you want to add to that?
No, she hit it. I think you reading my mind.
I might be. You got to get me on that podcast, because I can't wait to do that one.
Yeah, she's. I just can echo what she's saying. That's exactly the investors are following suit. So yeah.
Yep.
Liz, what are you seeing on the lending side as it pertains to somebody saying, "Hey, but I put Gucci in my bathroom on the floor. It's got to be worth more."
So again, it's important, depending on if you are the buyer or the listing agent, it's important to have those comps available and have a very strong list of comps, because something that, and this hasn't happened with me at my current lender, but when I used to work at a bank, see the running thing with banks moving forward. When I used to work at a bank, that issue of, so they call it the white elephant, which means you have something that there's nothing like it in half a mile radius, 2 mile radius. I had it happen with a client building basically a mansion out in West Pennsylvania, beautiful home, new construction. We're financing it, but we had to go back and we had to go toe to toe on the value, because there was nothing in that zip code, not even a zip code over. We were looking at houses 2 zip codes over. There's nothing to support that. And unfortunately, in that situation, the appraiser was being very conservative. So you have to be a little careful. And I say that more for the South than I say in areas that are rapidly developing. You got to be careful about having to go too far out to find a comp to justify the value on a home that you have listed, because it could put your buyer or your seller in a rough spot particularly because appraisers will charge more. You have to go further. And then there's the issue of they may still be very conservative after you contest, which can kill a deal for some folk. Value's not there, that deal could be over. So that from a lending side, you got to be as strong as possible with those comps, and everybody's got to be on the same page for that list price.
Brother Mike?
Yeah, I was just going to just, I know we're talking about the comps, but the reasoning, again, from my perspective for them comps, and Elizabeth can speak to this, is that any kind of way, if you can't make them payments and they need to foreclose and take that asset back, they need to make sure that they can sell it at the value of what that
absolutely
prices.
It's still a business at the end of the day. I'm here as the mouthpiece and a representative who does the financing, but comes up with creative solutions, gets it done for all of my clients, no matter what price bracket you're in. But at the end of the day, a lender, bank, credit union, correspondent, whoever, it's a business at the end of the day. So nobody's trying to be left holding the bag on a property, because everybody gets taken. Coattails dragged, everybody. Appraiser, loan officer, underwriter, everybody gets dragged when you have situations like that. So
you guys are
making me 2008. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good, baby. You're good. You guys are making me
on it, but it's
2008 crash. Like, we are I's is dotted and T's is crossed.
Oh no, nobody's missing a single step in this day and age. That's why, minor segue. There is no bubble pop, everybody. Everyone keeps waiting for it. I'm just gonna say it again. There's no pop in bubble. There's no bubble coming. It's gonna grow.
Can I add to that? I want to add to that. And again, I'm not trying to take over the show, brother, but I want to add.
No, you good, baby. I want you here for that knowledge.
Definitely for that, in terms of no bubble popping, because clients will ask me, investors, okay, we're waiting for these foreclosures. Here's the thing, like I said, I actually have a client, right? A lot of money, right? And it's a company, and they want houses. And they want to, but they right now, they're not backing off as far as houses. And that's just one. Who knows their competitors? So these hedge funds come in, they're going to buy these houses. So before we even get to the courthouse steps, they're going to buy it.
No.
So I don't see no foreclosures occurring.
Listen, they're not making more land. And this is just a conversation I have amongst my friends as we're thinking about investing overseas, everything. They're not making more land. Yes, digitally, crypto, I hear you. Yes, that's there. But in this realm, tangible, they're not making more land. So everybody's trying to buy up whatever pieces of real estate that they can in places where some of us don't see value, which is why I exist. Again, my clients are at all spectrums of income. I'm here to help you understand where the jewels are and how to get you the financing to do it, because you will find yourself bought out and everybody's stuck doing a rent to own. No offense. Sorry for the shots fired. But you might not own anything at the end of it because you can't even set up the plan to buy. But excuse me, I'm off my soapbox now.
One of the things I wanted to say you guys brought to the attention when you're talking about banks and lenders protecting themselves, making sure that there is an asset to foreclose on and to get value. What I'm finding, and I think this is a great question for everyone. I think Dayanna may take the lead on it because it's probably something she sees with first-time home buyers all the time. There are so many great programs out, and I guess it's also really germane to Liz with the lending. I'm down here being presented programs, and I told people, yo, my girl Liz has got me. Don't worry about that. I'm good. But I'm seeing 3% down, 100% down, no PMI. How is that possible? When you say lenders want to protect themselves and make sure if they foreclose, is it because they too are seeing that the value of houses are going up so quickly or steadily, I would rather say, that if they lent on 95% financing with no PMI to protect themselves, that they're still going to end up foreclosing a year later at 20% equity because the house just rose?
Well, I'm sorry, Dayanna, did you want to go? Because I want to.
No, Liz, you can actually go first on that one.
Liz want to eat that up.
I do, because again, it's a business. Lenders want to stay marketable and profitable in every single marketplace from every single income level. When you have a 3% down, no PMI, 5% down, or 100% financing, understand that there are specific requirements that make sure that buyer can actually afford to take on that mortgage. Everybody's not getting 100% financing. I believe Navy Federal, I don't work there, but they do it. So it is what it is. They do 100% financing. But you got to have at least like a 720, 740 to do it. I lost a friend to that program, but it's okay. I refinanced them. We're fine. Like those are the things that happen when you do 3%, 5%, even though it's minimal risk for the buyer and looks like maximal risk for the lender. Understand that the rates are different, that the points that you get charged for that rate are different, that the credit qualifications are different and usually more strenuous or strict. So understand nothing is for free, and there's a contingency plan in place if you should find yourself in a pandemic, right, where you have to work through your mortgages. But at the end of the day, we're not taking on more risk. They've just built the risk into the pricing.
Gotcha. I love that answer. That makes sense. From a financial guy, everything I always look at the business making sense of it. And it seems so unfair. And I'm going to go on my soapbox for a minute and kind of stay off of real estate for a hot second, but I promise to bring it back. I always talk about the cost of being poor. We feel this in our community so much that, and it doesn't make logical sense. I always tell people credit in particular is very counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense. Creditors want to see you amass the ability to spend as much as you can on credit and then not do it. They want to see you have the capacity to get $50,000 of credit and go use $400 of it because you're showing discipline and management skills that will allow them to do what? Lend you more money they don't want you to use. So here's the reality when it comes to the cost of being poor. I filed bankruptcy when I got divorced in 2015. So regardless of how much money I make, creditors look at me and say, there's a problem with Tank. Who files bankruptcy? Something must be wrong with this cat. And especially if it's not a mortgage. A mortgage is actually my best friend in this process because for as much as most Black people don't like answering questions, I need to answer questions. Like I need to explain why I filed bankruptcy. Hey, it wasn't because I mismanaged my money. It was because I had a stay-at-home wife who wanted all my assets, and my attorney said the best way to protect them was to file bankruptcy. But you look at my credit report, I paid every bill on time, every one I had up to the bankruptcy and since. You don't get that explanation when you fill out a Discover credit card app. Right. You just fill it out, they pull your credit, they see what they see, they approve or they don't. People don't understand in our community in particular, but across communities, that car notes, the cost of life insurance, there are so many things that factor amongst your financial picture that you present to people. Because whether we think so or not, there is a certain level of risk for a lender, for an insurer, for a homeowners association with people who do or present to do certain things. So I am of the mindset at Wealth Our Way of teaching people how to present better. And I know it lends itself so much to the mortgage process because this will be the longest term commitment that most people will ever make. 15-year, 30-year mortgages. Shit, in 2000, did I say that? In 2008, I got a 40-year. 2002, I got a 40-year mortgage. So these are commitments that will be forever for most people. And you have to make sure you're presenting to a lender, to a homeowners association, to a seller, even. In such a way that you are attractive in this deal. I just wanted to say that as we move to the next question. So Tashawana had a question, which is, why is it bad to pay off certain debt when you are trying to raise your credit score? What are those debts that you shouldn't pay off?
Ooh. Okay. I'm half a minute again. Thank you. Thanks for the ball, coach. All right. So Tashawana, here's the thing, and anyone else who has these questions. When we're talking about repairing or improving credit, first of all, I'm not a credit repair specialist. I just look at credit enough to be able to tell you what makes sense and what does not as a lender. So understand that it's not so much paying off the debt. It's when you close accounts. Stop closing accounts after you pay them off. If you pay them down to zero, leave them open. Always stay. When we're talking about credit cards, the number one rule everyone hears it, 30%. Don't go over 30% of your credit card limit. Okay? Don't close that credit card, especially if you had it for 5, 10, 15 years. Don't close it after you pay it off. Then you have lost all of that positive history. It's gone. Now, collections, you should pay those off. especially even if we don't necessarily pay attention to medical, so that's always a hit or miss. But if you have a short time of credit history, 5 years or less is my rule, and you have a lot of medical collections or just collections in general, pay them off. They're doing nothing but tanking your credit score. And then that allows your credit score to get some points. And then if you have your credit cards, keep them really around 15 to 20% of the limit when you have 5 years or less of credit. 5 years or less, you don't have enough. You're a baby in the credit world. You're an infant. Nobody is really paying you attention. Everything that can go left tanks your credit score, and it takes you an additional 2-3 years to repair. So don't close accounts, just pay them down. Don't max out your credit cards and then say, I make my minimum payment every month. No, 30%, pay it off. 30%, pay it off. If you have 5 years or less of credit, keep it between 15 to 20%. Pay it off and pay it by your statement due date. Not the due date, but when the statement comes out, pay your credit cards off before your statement comes out. That is usually when they report to the credit bureau. Seeing if we're talking about presenting to a lender, I just gave you a free gem. Don't tell anybody.
Okay. I didn't know that.
You know, something that I learned about credit that once again, and one of our WOW Nation members taught this to me, that I had a bad habit of, I don't use my credit cards, so to speak, as credit cards. I use them as charge cards. I will spend $200 on a card that has a $15,000 limit, so I'm under the 30%, because I can get reward points or whatever. And then I'll write the check and, let it take out my bank account. And people say, well, why wouldn't you just pay cash? Well, there's the answer, because I can get 1.5 times rewards or whatever the case may be. Okay. What I did learn, though, is on those odd times. So, when my cryptocurrency phase first started, I didn't want to pay no debt. I wanted to buy cryptocurrency. So I was carrying some balances on some credit cards for a while, dollar cost averaging into crypto. And once again, I love to tell people about my experiences. I think it's a great teaching point. And then I say, I'm a commission-based salesperson, so to speak. I got a huge amount of money that came in. So I was like, let me pay off some things that I've been carrying a balance on that I normally wouldn't. And I paid off some credit cards from over 30% to 0. And I thought this is the most intelligent thing to do, only to have someone who had just met with a credit repair specialist say, no, you want to at least let one cycle go of going from over 30 to under 30 before you go to 0, because it just looks like you abused credit and then fixed it. It goes back to that counterintuitive thought of, you didn't show that you could reasonably use credit. So you should have went from over 30, pay it down to maybe a $200 balance, let that record for a month, and then go to 0.
That's actually factual, Tank. Yes. Huh? That's actually factual. That's factual.
Yeah, that was the dumbest thing in the world to me, though. I was like, I got the money. Why would I not pay it off? And they're like, no, you have to report that you did it right for a cycle.
Wow.
Yes. I wanted to add something, Tank, as well. Something that Liz said about the collection. I'm not a credit repair specialist, but I work enough with clients in their credit, and I do credit coaching. So one thing about the collections on the credit report, if you're going to pay down the collections, which I agree, if you owe a collection, you should pay them. However, prior to paying them, you want to speak to that collection company to get what they call a pay for deletion letter. A pay for deletion letter basically states that the collection company agrees to delete this off of your credit report once you make the payment, because otherwise it'll still be on your credit report, bringing down your score, and it'll just say paid as agreed. So we need that score to jump back up. So therefore, we need them to delete it off of our credit report. And the only way that you can do that is if you negotiate a pay for deletion letter in order to get the collection off. That's what I would recommend.
Great nugget right there you dropped. I appreciate that, Dayanna. We have a question from a WOW Nation member. It says, what if you have above 8 years of credit history and you max out a card for your business? And I'm going to ask a question of this question. It says, can you consolidate the debt to elevate your credit? So my first question would be, is the card that you use for business a business card, or is it a personal card that you use for business? Because that does make a difference. When you have credit that doesn't have any personal guarantee to it, that it's for a business, businesses have an EIN for a reason. Anything that has an EIN or a social security number is its own entity. It's its own standalone person or entity for purposes of credit. So you can have a credit, it's a personal card for a business. Okay. So unfortunately, personal card for business in the eyes of the credit gods is just a personal card. The fact that you used it for business means nothing to them. It may mean something to the IRS at the end of the year when you're writing off your expenses. But from a credit standpoint, if I have my Charles Tank Harris Navy Federal card and somebody comes out with a brand new financial planning software and I charge it tomorrow, Navy Federal looks at that as a personal charge. They're not going to delineate that I bought some software for WOW. But now let's answer your question of, can you consolidate the debt? Who wants to talk about that?
I can talk about a strategy that I've used personally, and I've also helped clients use. So depending on if this person has a business, if they have a LLC or some type of entity which separates their personal from their business. So we're going to use LLC, for example. If their business is an LLC, what they can do is this is assuming that their credit score is at least a 700 and they don't have any derogatory remarks, collections, etc. on their report. If they have pretty good payment history, at least a 700, they can go to a bank and get a business credit card. Banks are giving out business credit cards up to $50,000 without any documentation. This is even for a new business. So, for example, you go to a bank, and if this is your first time applying, they may not give you the entire 50. They may give you 20. So you go to a bank, you get a business credit card in the name of your LLC. Again, that's separate from your personal. Make sure you try to get a 0% interest for like the introductory period of like 6 to 12 months. Then you can do a balance transfer from that personal credit card over to the business credit card. Now you put that debt from your personal on the business credit card, which if you knew better in the beginning, you probably would have done that. But now I'm giving you this strategy. So once that balance is transferred over, now you wiped away the interest that you were probably paying on the personal side. Now it's on the business side. So I would just recommend strategizing to pay that down before the 0% interest is over. And that would be my consolidation strategy right there.
Can I have a question? Let me ask you a question, said Dayanna. What if someone says, well, okay, I go to the bank to apply for the business credit, but they're still going to pull my individual and use me as a personal guarantee for the business, right? How does that kind of play together?
Right. So typically for a new business that's under 2 years that can't show any financials, tax returns, etc., they will likely want you to be a personal guarantor. The reason why I don't mind being a personal guarantor is because it's my debt. I still plan to pay it. I just want to take it off the personal side, because what a lot of people don't know is that you can max out a credit card on the business side and it doesn't affect your personal score. Or it doesn't affect your business score much as long as you pay it down according to the terms. So personally, I don't mind being a personal guarantor for debt that I know I'm responsible for. Now, once you are more established and you get at least 2 years history and you're able to provide financials, you can provide that. And banks are typically not asking you to be a personal guarantor anymore, as long as your business is established and you can prove those financials.
That's perfect. You know, I love this whole forum. I appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen, so very much. But, you know, as it always tends to be, we in the bewitching hour already. We got 6 minutes to go. And, you know, before I give my wealth is not only for the wealthy sign off. So I want you guys to all just give me a minute. We're going to go around a minute to just tell me what you feel is the number one thing, because this is really something I wanted to touch on here tonight, but we got into so much other good stuff. You got your house now. What are you doing? You got your house. What do you have now to deal with, you know, furnishing your house, dealing with increased utilities, dealing with landscaping, dealing with repairs? Home Depot's now your best friend. Like, what is it that you would tell someone who's in their house? They got the next 90 days to look forward to. What should they know? What should they expect? How can they be blessed by something you have to say? Let's start with Brother Mike.
Well, I guess the question to that is, are they selling it or are they?
No, they're in it. So we got a new home buyer.
Okay, got it. So now I would say, usually when you first buy that piece of property, you want to do some kind of repairs to it, whether you want to do some more painting or you want to Just add just any kind of construction work. The first good piece of advice I got to give you, and I personally, it helped me out. Your finances is kind of tight because you pay a lot of money for as a down payment. You probably didn't get closing costs negotiated in the seller's dominated market to win that property. You go to Lowe's or Home, you go Depot, and I find contractors in the stores, right? Instead, I'll stay away from Google. Then Angie's List, they too expensive, right? You find the good people actually in the stores. And I usually ask them, hey, listen, you think you can do X, Y, and Z? They show me a couple of references, or they might take me on the job site, what they have done. And I use them on my projects. And actually, I got a gentleman right now, the building that I stand in, that we own. He fixed it. I found them and using that manner, and he fixed his building. I mean, he takes care of all my properties, but I found them using that strategy.
Perfect.
So, because you go Lowe's, you go to these other websites, man, it's going to charge you arm and a leg, and they'll probably use one of them people that I to do the subcontracting work. You just go straight to the source. But that's what I would say.
I love it. Dayanna, what do you think? What are you telling people when they first get in their home?
Yes, I agree. Make sure you get yourself a good handyman, because they will likely come in handy when you go through this process and you may need a small repair or a large repair. You just want to kind of have someone reliable or a few people that you can call on. Another thing that I recommend is for new home buyers to get familiar with their homeowner's policy. Right? Read through your homeowner's policy. If you don't understand it, call the company and ask them what the coverage details are, what your deductible is, because God forbid something happens in your house and your homeowner's insurance may or may not cover it. You want to know that in advance. And you also want to know if you have a deductible, so that in the event something happens, you have your deductible, meaning you have to pay this amount prior to them covering the rest of the repairs. So that would be my number one gem, is to get familiar with the homeowner's policy.
I love it. Thank you. And Liz, bring us home, baby.
Appreciate you. My number one tip for new homeowners is, before you even get the settlement table, do not empty out your savings. You're not going to have any money for the repair person, the electrician, the locksmith. If you're an investor, you should have savings left over, which means your budget prior to going through the process should have been well put together, so that you still have money, also called reserves, left in your bank account, in your retirement account, wherever, outside of your down payment, closing costs, and your grant funds. Do not go into a house, do not settle into a house without any money left over, at least 3 months of your total monthly mortgage payment.
Great advice. You guys knew on Wealth Our Way Nation that you weren't getting out of a program without hearing the word budget. If not from me, from somebody else. It's always about the budget. So with that being said, I want to thank our guest, Mike Headley of the Hedley Real Estate Group, Dayanna Reeves, Millennial Making Sense, and Liz Parris of Movement Mortgage. Please tell everybody where they can find you on your social media, starting with Liz.
Medicine 2 Mortgages, the word medicine, the number 2 mortgages, Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, Elizabeth Parris, loan officer, NMLS 1511086. I can't remember that number to save my life.
Brother Mike.
Oh, first of all, you see this background? That's what the Hedley Group Real Estate Show. We are everywhere: YouTube, Apple, Google Streams, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere that you can see and hear a podcast. We are there, and please like and support. I'm trying to grow this thing.
Yes. And I'm Dayanna Reeves. You can find me on Instagram at Dayanna Reeves, my first and last name. My other companies are listed in my bio, so go to Dayanna Reeves on Instagram. I'm also Dayanna Reeves on Facebook.
Love it. I thank you guys, girls, women, men, so much. We got to be careful with our pronouns in 2022 and beyond. But I thank you all for being here with me. It's you guests. I'd say you people. It's you guests that make the show. You guys are the network net worth, and I appreciate you. So I thank you so very much. I thank the audience for being here with us. An hour goes by quick, but it's still an investment of your time, and I appreciate you. Tomorrow will be 12:30 Eastern time on 15 Minutes of Finance. Next Wednesday, right back here on the YouTube Wealth Our Way Network and Facebook Wealth Our Way pages with another financial power hour. And please, please never forget, wealth is not only for the wealthy. You guys take care and have a great evening.